What if I told you that the most powerful law enforcement agency in America once tried to blackmail Martin Luther King Jr. into suicide? That they conducted illegal experiments on American citizens? That they infiltrated and destroyed organizations based not on crimes committed, but on political ideology? This isn't conspiracy theory. These are documented facts, revealed through declassified documents, congressional hearings, and courageous whistleblowers who risked everything to expose the truth. Welcome to the secret history of the FBI's most controversial operations. For over a century, the Federal Bureau of Investigation has operated in the shadows of American democracy. While their official mission is to uphold the law, their secret history reveals a different story, one of surveillance, manipulation, political persecution, and operations that would make authoritarian regimes envious. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on operations so shocking, they were deliberately hidden from Congress, presidents, and the American people for decades. Some of these stories only came to light when activists broke into FBI offices in the dead of night. Others emerged through deathbed confessions and leaked documents. To understand how the FBI became America's secret police force, we need to go back to 1908. President Theodore Roosevelt created the Bureau of Investigation without congressional approval. Congress had specifically rejected funding for a federal detective agency, fearing it would become a tool of political oppression. Roosevelt simply ignored them and created it anyway using existing Justice Department funds. The Bureau's first decades were marked by scandal. Agents were caught conducting illegal surveillance, taking bribes, and engaging in criminal activities themselves. But everything changed when one man took control in 1924. J. Edgar Hoover. At just 29 years old, Hoover was appointed director of the Bureau of Investigation. He would hold that position for 48 years, serving under 8 presidents, until his death in 1972. No single person has wielded more unchecked power in American history. Hoover understood something fundamental: information is power. And he set about building the most sophisticated surveillance apparatus the world had ever seen. But here's what's truly shocking: Hoover kept secret files on everyone. Presidents, senators, Supreme Court justices, civil rights leaders, Hollywood celebrities. Anyone with power or influence had a file. And Hoover wasn't afraid to use what he found. When presidents tried to fire him, Hoover would hint at the contents of their files. Suddenly, those presidents would reconsider. This is how one unelected official maintained absolute power for nearly 5 decades. In 1956, Hoover launched a program so controversial, so fundamentally un-American, that its very existence wouldn't be revealed for 15 years. Its name was COINTELPRO, short for Counterintelligence Program. The official justification was to combat the Communist Party. But COINTELPRO quickly expanded to target any group Hoover deemed subversive, which turned out to be almost any organization advocating for social change. Here's how it worked: FBI agents would infiltrate organizations, spread false rumors, create fake documents, sabotage relationships, and actively work to destroy these groups from within. This wasn't surveillance. This was active disruption of legal, constitutionally protected activities. The scope was staggering. COINTELPRO Communist Party USA, COINTELPRO Socialist Workers Party, COINTELPRO White Hate Groups, COINTELPRO Black Nationalist Hate Groups, COINTELPRO New Left. But here's the shocking truth: while hate groups were in the names, the actual targeting was wildly disproportionate. The FBI devoted far more resources to disrupting civil rights and anti-war groups than to the KKK or neo-Nazi organizations. Let that sink in. The agency supposedly protecting American freedoms was actively working to destroy groups exercising their First Amendment rights. And the methods they used were straight out of a totalitarian playbook. Let's talk about what the FBI did to Martin Luther King Jr., because this story is so disturbing, so un-American, that even today it's hard to believe it actually happened. From the moment King emerged as a civil rights leader, J. Edgar Hoover targeted him. Hoover called King the most dangerous Negro in America. Not because King advocated violence, he didn't. But because he was effective. the FBI placed illegal wiretaps on King's home and office phones. They bugged his hotel rooms. They recorded his private conversations. And they weren't looking for evidence of crimes, they were looking for ammunition to destroy his reputation. In November 1964, the FBI sent King a package. Inside was a tape recording of King in compromising situations, compiled from their illegal surveillance. Along with the tape was an anonymous letter. The letter essentially told King to kill himself. It gave him 34 days, before he was scheduled to receive the Nobel Peace Prize, to take his own life, or the FBI would release the tapes publicly. Let me repeat that, the FBI tried to blackmail Martin Luther King Jr. into committing suicide. This wasn't the action of a rogue agent. This operation was approved at the highest levels of the FBI. William Sullivan, head of the FBI's Domestic Intelligence Division, later admitted he approved the letter. But the FBI's war on civil rights didn't stop with King. They infiltrated the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, creating distrust and paranoia. They sent anonymous letters to the wives of activists, falsely claiming their husbands were having affairs. They created fake propaganda to make groups appear violent when they weren't. In one operation, they sent a fake letter to the leader of a black activist group, supposedly from a rival gang, designed to provoke violence. The letter worked. People died as a result. The FBI manufactured violence to justify cracking down on peaceful activists. December 4, 1969. 4:45 a.m. Chicago. 14 Chicago police officers, guided by FBI intelligence, raided an apartment where Black Panther Party members were sleeping. When the shooting stopped, Fred Hampton, the 21-year-old chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party, was dead. So was Mark Clark, another Panther leader. The police claimed it was a shootout. They said the Panthers fired first, forcing them to return fire in self-defense. It was a lie. Forensic evidence later proved that nearly 100 shots were fired, with only one coming from the Panthers' side, likely a reflexive trigger pull as Clark was shot and dying. But here's what makes this truly shocking: the FBI had infiltrated the Black Panthers months earlier. An informant named William O'Neill had risen to become Fred Hampton's chief of security. O'Neill provided the FBI with detailed floor plans of the apartment, including the exact location where Hampton slept. The night before the raid, O'Neill drugged Hampton. Hampton was so heavily sedated that he never even woke up during the raid. He was shot twice in the head while lying in his bed. Witnesses said he was unconscious when he was killed. This wasn't law enforcement. This was assassination. The FBI paid O'Neill for his work. He received a $300 bonus after Hampton's death. Years later, O'Neill gave a rare interview describing his role. He showed no remorse, calling it a job. In 1990, O'Neill committed suicide by running into traffic on a Chicago freeway. The families of Hampton and Clark sued the federal government. After years of legal battles, they won. The government paid $1.85 million in damages. But nobody from the FBI ever faced criminal charges. By the late 1960s, COINTELPRO had expanded to target anti-war activists, student groups, and anyone associated with the counterculture movement. The FBI infiltrated Students for a Democratic Society, the largest student activist organization in America. They planted informants who advocated for increasingly radical actions, pushing the group toward violence. This is a critical point. FBI informants often became the most radical voices in these organizations, advocating for violent actions that the legitimate members opposed. In one documented case, an FBI informant in the anti-war movement was the person who suggested bombing a building. When other members refused, the informant kept pushing. Eventually, he manufactured fake evidence to create paranoia within the group, causing it to splinter. The FBI wasn't just observing these groups. They were actively radicalizing them, then using that radicalization as justification for further surveillance and disruption. They sent fake letters to parents of student activists, claiming their children were in danger or involved in drugs. They contacted employers to get activists fired from their jobs. They leaked false information to newspapers to damage reputations. One memo from FBI headquarters instructed agents to enhance the paranoia endemic in these circles and convince activists that there's an FBI agent behind every mailbox. It worked. Organizations tore themselves apart from within, suspecting everyone of being an informant. Trust, the foundation of any movement, was systematically destroyed. March 8, 1971. Media, Pennsylvania. While America was distracted by the Muhammad Ali vs. Joe Frazier boxing match, the fight of the century, 8 activists broke into a small FBI office. They spent hours searching through filing cabinets, taking every document they could carry. What they found would change American history. The documents revealed COINTELPRO. For the first time, the American public learned that the FBI was actively working to destroy legal, constitutionally protected organizations. The burglars called themselves the Citizens Commission to investigate the FBI. They carefully analyzed the documents, then mailed them to newspapers and congressmen. The FBI launched one of the most extensive manhunts in its history. They interviewed over 200 suspects. They conducted extensive surveillance. But they never caught the burglars. The case remained unsolved for over 40 years, until the participants voluntarily revealed themselves in 2014. By then, the statute of limitations had long passed. These activists, a professor, a social worker, a daycare center director, and others, risked everything because they believed Americans deserved to know what their government was doing in secret. Without their courage, we might never have learned about COINTELPRO. The media break-in sparked outrage, but the FBI stonewalled. Hoover died in 1972, but the culture he created persisted. Then came Watergate. As Nixon's crimes were exposed, Americans began questioning what other abuses of power were being hidden. In 1975, Senator Frank Church led a committee to investigate intelligence agency abuses. What they uncovered was staggering. The Church Committee findings. The FBI had conducted illegal surveillance on over 500,000 Americans. They maintained secret files on over 1 million Americans. They opened and photographed 215,000 pieces of first-class mail without warrants. They conducted illegal break-ins, what they called black bag jobs, for decades. The FBI had programs targeting Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement, anti-war activists, women's liberation groups, environmental activists, Puerto Rican independence groups, Native American activists, and countless others. But here's what's truly shocking: the FBI frequently lied to Congress. When senators asked direct questions about surveillance programs, FBI officials committed perjury. One FBI memo explicitly stated their goal was to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize political groups. Not investigate. Not monitor. Neutralize. Senator Church himself warned, if this government ever became a tyranny, the technological capacity that the intelligence community has given the government could enable it to impose total tyranny, and there would be no way to fight back. After the Church Committee exposed FBI abuses, Congress passed reforms. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act created special courts to oversee electronic surveillance. New guidelines were supposed to prevent future COINTELPRO-style operations. But did these reforms actually work? In the late 1970s and throughout the 1980s, the FBI launched extensive surveillance of groups opposing U.S. policy in Central America. They infiltrated churches providing sanctuary to refugees. They monitored peace groups and solidarity organizations. The FBI's investigation of the Committee in Solidarity with the People of El Salvador, CISPS, began in 1981 and continued for years. Over 2,000 individuals and 138 organizations were investigated. No evidence of illegal activity was ever found. Because there was none. The FBI was once again targeting Americans for their political beliefs. In the 1990s, they infiltrated environmental and animal rights groups. Undercover agents and informants were present at meetings, sometimes acting as provocateurs. In one case, an FBI informant named Anna was so effective at encouraging illegal activity that activists became suspicious. When they investigated, they discovered she was working for the FBI, while also embezzling money from the groups she infiltrated. The pattern was clear. Despite reforms, the FBI continued to target political activists rather than focusing exclusively on actual criminal activity. The question wasn't whether the FBI would abuse its power again. The question was when. September 11, 2001, changed everything. In the aftermath of the terrorist attacks, Congress passed the USA Patriot Act. It was over 300 pages long. Most members of Congress never read it before voting. It passed the Senate 98-1 and the House 357-66. The Patriot Act gave the FBI unprecedented surveillance powers. National security letters allowed agents to demand records from businesses without a court order. Section 215 allowed seizure of any tangible thing, including library records, medical records, financial records. And here's the key. These powers came with gag orders. If the FBI demanded your records, you couldn't tell anyone. Not your lawyer. Not your family. Not the press. The FBI issued tens of thousands of national security letters. In 2005 alone, they issued over 47,000. But just like in the COINTELPRO era, these new powers were quickly abused. A 2007 Inspector General report found that the FBI had illegally obtained telephone records. They had issued national security letters without proper authorization. They had violated their own guidelines over 1,000 times. Sound familiar? After September 11th, the FBI dramatically increased surveillance of Muslim communities across America. What happened next bears striking similarities to COINTELPRO. The FBI deployed informants into mosques, not because there was evidence of criminal activity, but simply to monitor what Muslims were saying and doing. These informants were often individuals with criminal records who were offered money or threatened with deportation unless they cooperated. Some were paid six figures to infiltrate communities. But here's where it gets truly disturbing: many informants didn't just observe. They instigated. Take the case of Shahar Matan Siraj. In 2004, an NYPD informant working with the FBI befriended Siraj, a 22-year-old who worked in his uncle's bookstore. The informant spent months encouraging Siraj to talk about attacking police stations. He showed Siraj images of torture at Abu Ghraib, trying to enrage him. Eventually, Siraj made some statements about hypothetically attacking a police station. He was arrested and sentenced to 30 years in prison. The question is, would Siraj have ever contemplated violence without the FBI informant pushing him toward it? This pattern repeated across the country. The Newburgh Four, an FBI informant, offered money and encouraged impoverished men to discuss terrorist plots. Defense attorneys argued these men were manufactured terrorists, created by the FBI's own informant. The Portland tree lighting bomber, an FBI informant, spent months encouraging a 19-year-old Somali American to carry out an attack. The informant provided fake explosives and helped plan everything. Critics called these sting operations. But many looked more like entrapment, the FBI creating terrorists rather than catching them. In 2013, Edward Snowden revealed that the NSA was conducting mass surveillance of Americans. But the FBI was also deeply involved. The FBI had access to PRISM, the program that collected data from major tech companies. They could search these databases for information on Americans without warrants. The FBI was also running its own facial recognition systems, searching through driver's license photos and other databases without oversight. In 2019, it was revealed that the FBI had purchased access to a massive database of location data harvested from smartphone apps. They could track anyone's movements without a warrant. But here's what makes this different from the COINTELPRO era: the scale. In Hoover's time, the FBI had to physically follow people, install wiretaps, open mail. Surveillance was labor-intensive and limited. Today, technology allows surveillance of everyone, all the time. Your phone tracks your location. Your social media posts are monitored. your searches are logged. Facial recognition can identify you in public spaces. The FBI doesn't need informants in every organization anymore. They can simply vacuum up digital data on everyone. And here's the terrifying part, we know they abuse this access. The FISA court, the court supposed to oversee surveillance, revealed that FBI agents had improperly searched surveillance databases for information on themselves, their family members, and even their romantic interests. Over 3.4 million improper searches in just 1 year. Let that number sink in. 3.4 million. The technology has changed. But the pattern of abuse hasn't. Summer 2020. After George Floyd's murder, millions of Americans took to the streets in the largest protest movement in U.S. history. And the FBI was watching. Documents revealed that the FBI deployed agents to monitor Black Lives Matter protests across the country. They flew surveillance aircraft over demonstrations. They monitored social media. They used facial recognition to identify protesters. But here's the shocking part, FBI officials testified to Congress that Black identity extremists were a domestic terrorism threat. This category didn't exist before 2017. And its definition was vague enough to encompass any Black activist. Civil rights groups immediately noted the parallel to COINTELPRO's targeting of Black activists in the 1960s. The FBI was once again treating racial justice advocacy as a threat rather than protecting protesters' constitutional rights. Meanwhile, FBI field offices were sending urgent warnings about white supremacist groups. But these warnings were often ignored or downplayed at headquarters. Internal FBI documents, later leaked, showed that agents investigating white supremacy were told to justify their investigations and prove these groups represented genuine threats. No such requirement existed for investigations into Black activists or left-wing groups. The disparity in how threats are assessed based on ideology continues to this day. The FBI has become increasingly politicized in recent years, or perhaps more accurately, Americans have become more aware of the FBI's political activities. Under President Trump, the FBI investigated his campaign's contacts with Russia. Trump and his supporters claimed the FBI was engaging in a political witch hunt. They pointed to text messages between FBI agents that showed personal political opinions about Trump. But under Trump's own administration, the FBI also investigated leakers and journalists who reported stories the administration disliked. They used anti-terrorism tools to track journalists' communications. Here's the uncomfortable truth, both political parties claim the FBI targets them. And both have evidence to support their claims. This suggests the problem isn't partisan bias, it's the FBI's willingness to involve itself in political matters at all. The Church Committee warned about this in 1976. The FBI has, on occasion, selected its targets on the basis of their political beliefs rather than suspicion of crime. 50 years later, that warning remains relevant. Let's talk about one of the most controversial aspects of modern FBI operations, the use of informants and undercover agents to encourage criminal activity. The FBI calls these proactive operations. Critics call them entrapment. Consider the case of the alleged plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer in 2020. The FBI infiltrated the group with at least 12 informants and undercover agents. These FBI sources were so involved that defense attorneys argued they had planned and directed the entire operation. Recordings revealed FBI informants encouraging violence, offering to pay for trips and supplies, and pushing reluctant participants toward action. 2 defendants were acquitted. 2 others had mistrials declared because juries couldn't reach unanimous verdicts. Prosecutors had to retry them. This raises a fundamental question: if FBI informants are providing the ideas, the planning, the equipment, and the encouragement, who is really creating the crime? The legal standard for entrapment is whether the defendant was predisposed to commit the crime. But how can we assess someone's predisposition when an FBI informant has spent months manipulating them? This isn't just a legal technicality. It's a question of what we want our law enforcement agencies to do. Should they prevent crimes? Or should they create crimes, then arrest people for being susceptible to manipulation? The FBI would say they're identifying dangerous people before they can cause harm. Critics say they're manufacturing terrorists and criminals who wouldn't exist otherwise. Both might be partially right, which is exactly what makes this so controversial. Here's something that should concern every American: we only know about FBI abuses when they're exposed. COINTELPRO operated for 15 years before activists broke into an FBI office and revealed it. The FBI's attempts to blackmail Martin Luther King Jr. weren't officially acknowledged until the 1970s, after Hoover's death. So what operations are happening right now that we don't know about? The FBI operates under what they call sources and methods secrecy. They argue that revealing their investigative techniques would help criminals evade detection. But history shows that this secrecy is also used to hide illegal and unconstitutional activities. Consider, the FBI still redacts huge portions of documents about operations from the 1960s. Activities that happened over 60 years ago are still considered too sensitive to reveal. Why? What could possibly need to remain secret after 6 decades, unless it's so controversial that the FBI fears public reaction? Let me share some mysteries that remain unsolved. The mysterious death of Fred Hampton's lawyer. Jeffrey Haas, the attorney who represented Fred Hampton's family, received constant harassment and threats during his work. Other activists involved in investigating Hampton's death died under suspicious circumstances. Were these coincidences? Or was something more sinister happening? The extent of informant networks. During the Church Committee hearings, the FBI admitted to having informants in news organizations, but refused to provide details. Were journalists working as FBI informants? Are they still? We don't know. Modern surveillance capabilities. We know the FBI can hack into phones, computers, and smart home devices. But what surveillance technology exists that hasn't been revealed? Given that most COINTELPRO-era surveillance was illegal, why should we assume current surveillance is conducted within legal boundaries? The use of parallel construction. This is a technique where law enforcement uses illegally obtained information to find evidence, then constructs a parallel legal justification for how they found it. The defendant never knows their rights were violated. How often does this happen? Corporate cooperation. How much data are tech companies secretly providing to the FBI? We know about some programs through leaks, but companies are prohibited from revealing FBI data demands. What don't we know? The pattern is clear: the FBI's most controversial operations only come to light through leaks, whistleblowers, or break-ins by activists. So when the FBI says trust us, we're following the rules now, history gives us every reason to be skeptical. Let's talk about what all of this means for American democracy. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. The First Amendment protects freedom of speech and association. These aren't suggestions, they're fundamental rights. Yet the FBI has systematically violated these rights for over a century. They've argued that national security justifies these violations. But here's the problem with that argument. The whole point of constitutional rights is that they're supposed to protect us, especially when the government claims security concerns. Rights that disappear whenever the government says national security aren't really rights at all. Benjamin Franklin famously said, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." But here's what Franklin didn't anticipate: we're not being asked to give up liberty. It's being taken from us in secret. We're not making a conscious trade-off between freedom and security. We're being surveilled, manipulated, and controlled without our knowledge or consent. The FBI has shown that without transparency and accountability, they will abuse their power. It's not a matter of a few bad apples, it's systemic, spanning decades and multiple directors. Even if you've never been directly targeted by the FBI, their surveillance likely affects your behavior. This is called the chilling effect. When people know they might be watched, they self-censor. They don't join organizations. They don't attend protests. They don't speak freely. Studies have shown that after the Snowden revelations about mass surveillance, internet searches for controversial topics dropped significantly. people avoided searching for information about their rights, about government abuses, about dissenting political views. This is thought control without the government telling you what to think. It's thought control through intimidation. The First Amendment protects freedom of association. But if joining an organization means you'll end up in an FBI database, with your name, photos, and activities logged forever, many people will choose not to associate. The question isn't, do you have something to hide? The question is, should you have to worry that legal, constitutionally protected activities could someday be used against you? History shows that what's considered acceptable changes. People who joined socialist organizations in the 1930s found themselves blacklisted in the 1950s. Civil rights activists in the 1960s were treated as threats to national security. Today's legal activism could be tomorrow's extremism if the political winds shift. When people can't freely organize, protest, and advocate for change without fear of surveillance and retaliation, democracy dies. Not with a bang, but with silence. Some argue that the FBI can be reformed. That with proper oversight and accountability, it could operate within constitutional boundaries. Let's examine this position fairly. The case for reform. The FBI does conduct legitimate investigations. They investigate public corruption, organized crime, terrorism, and other serious threats. Many FBI agents genuinely believe they're protecting Americans and operating legally. After the Church Committee revelations, reforms were implemented. FISA courts were created. Congressional oversight was enhanced. Inspectors general were given more power. These reforms haven't been perfect, but they have provided some check on FBI power. When abuses are discovered, they're at least investigated now. Moreover, completely disbanding the FBI would create a vacuum. Some federal law enforcement capability is necessary. We can't simply eliminate it without something to replace it. The reformist view is that we need stronger oversight with real teeth, severe penalties for agents who violate rights, complete transparency except where genuinely necessary for active investigations, clear limits on surveillance powers, regular audits by independent bodies, whistleblower protections for agents who expose abuse. These are reasonable suggestions. The question is whether they would actually work. But there's another perspective, that the FBI cannot be reformed because the problem is structural. Here's the argument. The FBI has been reformed multiple times. After the Church Committee. After the CISP scandal. After September 11th. After Snowden. And yet abuses continue. Why? Because surveillance and political policing aren't bugs in the system, they're features. The FBI's core mission gives it both the power and the incentive to abuse rights. They're tasked with preventing threats to national security. But threats to national security is subjectively defined by whoever's in power. During the Cold War, civil rights activists were considered threats. During the War on Terror, Muslims were considered threats. During recent racial justice protests, black activists were considered threats. The problem is that domestic intelligence agencies inevitably become political actors. When you give an organization the power to secretly investigate and disrupt, they will use that power to target political opposition. It's happened in every country that's created such agencies. Moreover, the FBI has shown remarkable ability to evade oversight. They classify documents to avoid scrutiny. They lie to Congress. They use parallel construction to hide illegal surveillance. They claim sources and methods secrecy to avoid accountability. The critics' view is that you cannot have both a secret domestic surveillance agency and a free society. These two things are fundamentally incompatible. Some reformers propose radical restructuring. Option 1, separation of functions, split the FBI into separate agencies. A pure criminal investigation agency with no surveillance powers, a counterterrorism agency with strict oversight, complete elimination of domestic intelligence gathering. Option 2, sunset provisions, any surveillance power automatically expires after 2 to 3 years unless Congress explicitly reauthorizes it. This forces regular review rather than allowing powers to accumulate indefinitely. Option 3, Public advocates create a system where privacy advocates can challenge surveillance requests before they're approved, providing adversarial input instead of rubber stamp approval. Option 4. Real penalties make it a serious felony for FBI agents to violate constitutional rights. End qualified immunity for federal agents. Create personal liability. These proposals face massive political obstacles. The FBI has powerful allies in Congress. The intelligence community argues that restrictions would make Americans less safe. And there's always another crisis that makes reform seem less urgent. But history shows that without dramatic structural changes, abuse will continue. The question isn't whether we want reform. It's whether reform is even possible. Let's step back and look at what we've learned from over a century of FBI operations. Lesson 1. Power, once granted, is rarely relinquished. The FBI was given emergency powers during World War I, the Cold War, after September 11th. These temporary powers became permanent. Surveillance capabilities only expand, they never contract. Lesson 2. Trust us is not sufficient. Every time FBI abuses were exposed, officials promised this will never happen again. Yet it kept happening. Without structural restraints and transparency, promises are meaningless. Lesson 3. Secrecy enables abuse. Every major FBI scandal was hidden behind classification and secrecy. Operations that violated the Constitution were stamped top secret not to protect national security, but to protect the FBI from accountability. Lesson 4. The targets of surveillance are chosen politically, not based on threat. The FBI devoted more resources to Martin Luther King Jr. than to the KKK. They surveilled anti-war protesters more than domestic terrorists. The pattern shows that ideology, not danger, determines who gets targeted. Lesson 5. Technology makes surveillance both easier and more invasive. In Hoover's day, the FBI needed warrants to install wiretaps on specific phones. Today, they can access vast databases of everyone's communications, locations, and activities. The scale of modern surveillance would have been Hoover's dream. Lesson 6. Informants and provocateurs create the crimes they're supposed to prevent. From COINTELPRO to post-9/11 sting operations, FBI informants have consistently pushed people toward illegal activity, then arrested them for it. This manufactured crime creates statistics that justify more funding and power. Lesson 7. The FBI operates as its own political force. For 48 years, J. Edgar Hoover blackmailed presidents and senators into leaving him alone. The FBI has shown it can resist oversight, manipulate Congress, and pursue its own agenda regardless of who's in power. Now let's talk about today. Right now. What warning signs should concern us? Warning sign 1. Expanded surveillance with minimal oversight. The FBI now has access to surveillance tools that would have seemed like science fiction in the COINTELPRO era. Facial recognition. Location tracking. Social media monitoring. Access to vast commercial databases. And the oversight hasn't kept pace. The FISA court approves over 99% of surveillance requests. Congressional oversight is limited by classification. The public has no idea how these powers are being used. Warning sign 2. The normalization of secret law. Increasingly, legal interpretations that govern surveillance are themselves classified. Americans are subject to secret laws they're not allowed to read. The government can claim actions are legal while refusing to show anyone the legal justification. This is fundamentally incompatible with democracy. Warning sign 3. The revolving door. FBI officials retire and immediately take high-paying jobs with defense contractors, tech companies, and private intelligence firms. Then they use their contacts and security clearances to profit from the surveillance state they helped build. This creates incentives to expand surveillance powers, not to protect Americans, but to create business opportunities. Warning sign 4. The weaponization rhetoric. Both political parties now routinely accuse the FBI of being weaponized against them. While these claims are often exaggerated for political gain, the fact that such accusations are plausible shows how politicized the FBI has become. When people across the political spectrum believe the FBI targets political enemies, trust in institutions collapses. Warning sign 5, the lack of accountability. Despite decades of documented abuses, how many FBI officials have faced criminal charges? How many have gone to prison? The answer is shockingly few. When there are no consequences for violating constitutional rights, those violations will continue. Senator Frank Church said in 1975, "The United States government has perfected a technological capability that enables us to monitor the messages that go through the air. That capability at any time could be turned around on the American people, and no American would have any privacy left. There would be no place to hide." He said that 50 years ago, when surveillance technology was primitive compared to today. Imagine what he would say now. For over a century, the FBI has operated as if the Constitution doesn't apply to them. They've surveilled political activists. They've blackmailed civil rights leaders. They've manufactured crimes. They've lied to Congress. They've destroyed lives and movements. And they've done it all in secret, claiming it's for our protection. But here's what they never understand. A government that treats its citizens as subjects to be controlled rather than people to be protected has lost its legitimacy. A democracy where people are afraid to organize, afraid to protest, afraid to speak freely, isn't a democracy at all. The question isn't whether the FBI will abuse its power again. History shows they will. The question is whether we'll hold them accountable this time. We've covered over a century of FBI operations. From J. Edgar Hoover's secret files to modern mass surveillance. From COINTELPRO's destruction of the civil rights movement to post-9/11 sting operations. The patterns are clear. The abuses are documented. The warning signs are present. But this story isn't over. Right now, the FBI is conducting investigations. They're deploying informants. They're accessing databases. They're building cases. Some of these investigations target genuine criminals and terrorists. But history suggests that many target people whose only crime is political dissent. And we won't know which is which, not for years, maybe decades, until documents are leaked or declassified. This is the fundamental problem. In a democracy, the people are supposed to control the government. But how can we control what we can't see? The Citizens Commission that broke into the FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania, left a note. It said, "The people have a right to know what is being done in their name." They were right. You have a right to know who the FBI is investigating and why, what surveillance powers they're using, how they're spending taxpayer money, whether they're respecting constitutional rights. And when you learn that rights are being violated, you have a responsibility to act. Not with violence. Not with lawlessness. But with civic engagement, political pressure, and unwavering commitment to democratic principles. I want to leave you with one question. What kind of society do you want to live in? One where the government knows everything about you, but you know nothing about what the government does in secret? Or one where privacy is protected, transparency is required, and power is accountable? The FBI's secret history shows what happens when we choose security over liberty, when we trust rather than verify, when we allow secrecy to shield abuse. Every generation must choose between freedom and control. Today, that choice is yours. The surveillance infrastructure exists. The powers have been granted. The precedents have been set. What happens next depends on whether citizens demand accountability, or simply accept that this is how things are. The victims of COINTELPRO couldn't fight back because they didn't know they were being targeted. But you know now. You know the history. You know the patterns. You know the stakes. So the question isn't what the FBI will do. The question is what you will do.